Are you a prisoner of your own perfection? Does perfectionism drive a wedge between you and connecting with others? Have you perfected yourself into a perfect little ditch? Hi there, in this video we'll explore why so many gay men are driven towards perfectionism, and I'll offer 3 steps to taking the pressure of perfectionism off your shoulders.
You are on my mind. I can't control my body, can't control my body.
As perfectionists, others may experience you, and you may experience yourself, as judgmental, highly detailed, driven by a critical gaze and an acute awareness of your own imperfections and sense of not being good enough. Your thinking tends to be in black and white terms, and your self-esteem is based on meeting often very high standards and conditions for yourself. But this is not who you are, it's just what you do. And you can learn to undo it and provide more genuine self-acceptance, love, and appreciation for yourself and those around you. So why do you do it? Well, your personality is fully formed by the age of 7. So I'll say that again. Your personality is fully formed by the age of 7. The majority of the beliefs that you hold about yourself were created through a child's mind in response to the impressions and messages you received from all of those around you. The beliefs you adopted were not even yours to begin with, but were adopted through your own enculturation and conditioning. So perfectionism is simply a coping mechanism that you adopted into your personality structure as a counterbalance to these feelings of being shamed during that conditioning. The perfectionist is driven by the hidden belief that he needs to be perfect in your eyes and perfect himself and be right or righteous in order to get love. It is the type 1 personality structure that says to itself, I'm not worthwhile as I am, I'm deeply flawed and everyone knows it, and I have to hide it from them to get their love, but I can't let them see that. So the reason why perfectionism is common amongst gay people is during our very early childhood development, well before we even became aware of our own sexuality, we were influenced by the social messages and the impressions we received from those around us about what it means to be gay, which still today suggests that to be gay is somehow inferior, less than, shameful, and worse, depending on where you're raised. But what's wrong with having high standards? For many gay men, and you may be one of them, or at least know 1 or 2, they see their perfectionism as a strength. In their mind, it's their high standards that got them to where they are. Without it, they probably wouldn't be as successful. And there might be a lot of truth to that, but there's another truth, one that isn't always as easy to recognize, and that's how the perfectionism is not serving you. Sure, you may get to enjoy the benefits of being perfect at what you're doing, but do they measure up against the costs? Unfortunately, the practice of perfectionism distances you from others. At the end of the day, what other people connect with is another person's humanity, not his facade of perfection. When you feel like you have to be perfect because in these moments of being perfect you're accepted and enough to be loved, it's a terrible trap that puts conditions on your self-worth and says, I'm only lovable when. In order to free yourself from the pitfalls of perfection, the source of the shame as it relates to inadequacy and not good enough needs to be unpacked. And there are 3 steps I work with people in breaking down shame-driven perfectionism. And the first is to explore the shame. We want to get to what is driving the perfectionism. What is the perfectionism masking or hiding that is true, that you as a human being have not given yourself permission to see? Understanding your shame, knowing where it comes from and how it's disproportionate to what the situation was or currently is a starting point in self-observation that shines light on the conditioned shame response rather than to believe it to be true. Exploring the origins of the shame and staying with the feelings of the first experience is one of the ways to help resolve the shame. And once you are able to tolerate the past shameful feelings, it can then be easier to pull back on the drive for perfection. You no longer need it to protect yourself from the shame. For step 2, once you've located the origins of the shame and allowed yourself to experience the feelings, the next step is to introduce self-compassion to the process. So with soften, soothe, and allow, you first locate the feeling in your body. And for me, it was always this big pit in my chest. Now, once you've located, try to just breathe into that area. So send breath into the area and see if you can just soften it at the edges and allow the breath to open it up and create a bit of space there. And that tightness in your chest or throat or stomach or wherever it is may just soften at the edges and begin to gently open. It may also help to gently massage the area to help with this physical soothing. And then to allow is to simply notice any judging thoughts or story that the feelings bring up. Try to separate the feelings from the story and know that the feeling is just a feeling. It's just a feeling in your body and you can watch it and without giving into it at all. Practice being with the feeling and then notice when the story comes up. Simply allow it to pass without reacting. When shame takes a deep hold of you, one of the first casualties you'll often see is a loss of inner compassion. This can then open up the door for unhealthy coping strategies. By using body work and mindfulness together, you can watch inside of you what's happening in your body, your emotions, your thoughts, and the images and memories from your past. Once you link your perfectionism to the feeling you are trying to avoid, you open up a path for what comes next. So step 3 is to just simply stop problem solving. There's no more trying here. Trying is trying and we're done with trying. You don't want to just problem solve because that doesn't really work if you don't tend to get to what's underneath it. This is about getting to the root of what is driving the perfectionism and what is behind what is driving it. So to summarize, when it comes to the shame that lies underneath perfectionism, here are 3 ways you can work with it. Explore the shameful feelings so that you can eventually tolerate them. That way the need for the perfectionism might dissolve. Then you can introduce an inner compassion exercise where you can separate the story from the feeling. And thirdly, you can look for the organizing elements underneath the shame instead of finding ways to problem solve the perfection. The door is unlocked to the prison of perfectionism. You just have to see it for what it is before walking through. Let others see your mistakes. Be generous in admitting your shortcomings, failings, and social missteps. Be the first to take responsibility for your share of conflict, and on the other side is a life filled with loving and supporting people who make your life truly worthwhile.